In many cultures, there's a reverence for the ancestors. But yet, many of the distortion patterns that keep us stuck come from what our ancestors experienced before us. Can we move beyond those old distortion patterns and have a different and more positive relationship with our lineage and ancestors? In this episode, we talk about how our relationship with our lineage shifts as our vibrational level rises, and the trippy consequences of what happens when we start to clear the distortion patterns of the lineages of our past or alternate lives. And after the discussion, we get to the most important part. The group frequency calibration associated with this episode is where the frequency work happens and where change actually occurs. So be sure to listen to that. Without releasing distortion patterns targeted by the GFC, the change you want will be more difficult to attain because you haven't addressed the root of the issue. If you like this episode, please help us out by hitting the like button. It helps us get the word out to more people. And if you want to make sure you don't miss out on our regular new content, click the subscribe button too. My name is Karen Cheong. And today, in Mastering Your World Through Frequencies, we're discussing ancestors and evolution, shifting your spiritual legacy.
So today when we're talking about lineage, are we talking about ancestors?
Yes, it's a different way of saying it.
Okay,
Totally.
Right. So when we're talking about our ancestors, are we talking about our familial only ancestors, or are there different types of ancestors? I think that's probably the specific question.
Yeah, I love that question because it's a question that many people won't think of. So a lot of people will think of their ancestors as like, here you are in this lifetime, you were born into this family. So obviously the people behind you, so meaning your grandparents, your great-grandparents, your great-great-great-great-grandparents, and so on and so on and so on, are your ancestors.
Yeah.
And they are, because you're blood related to the people who came before you. And we also have the ancestors from our past lifetimes.
Yeah.
And they definitely will play a part too. And that gets a little mind-boggling because you're like, wow, that's a lot of potential incarnations, a lot of potential different ancestors. And then the ancestors, if you go even bigger than that, start to overlap with each other. And that becomes a reflection of one. So yeah, to answer your question, there are all kinds of ancestors out there.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because I mean, along the path I've heard about the ancestors of the human race, you know, the seed of the human race.
Yeah.
I mean, this could be controversial for some people maybe listening, but there is a story that we were conceived here on this planet by other beings. And so we have our human lineage, you know, the ancestors and that, but we also have the seed lineage, as I've understood it, that are on other planets.
Yeah.
You know?
So a lot of people will talk about, and I've talked about this before, having star being lineage.
Yeah.
So for a number of people, they're not like originating from Earth, so to speak, meaning they are incarnated in human bodies to have a human experience, but they also have a lineage or an experience or ancestry in different star systems.
Yeah.
And so they bring that with them in their humanness, even though they don't really understand what that means necessarily. They don't understand exactly how that impacts them potentially, but they don't quite feel like they're from here. And a lot of times that's why. Yeah.
Okay. Now, there's a lot of questions because, first of all, I really want to know, why do we care?
Yes.
Right? I mean, they're dead. You know?
Yes.
And I'm sure that's controversial as well because, I mean, there are a lot of people put a lot of power in their ancestors.
Yes.
I mean, I've seen it. I've been in communities where they honor them to the point of they take precedence over that person's life that's living right now.
Yes. Too.
So I've seen that. So why do we care? I mean, what does it have to do with frequency work?
Yeah. So there are many traditions that honor ancestors or the dead, and or both actually, because for some cultures those two things are different. Meaning there's the dead general, and then there's the ancestors, which are more specifically related to them.
Yeah.
So there are both those things. So for me, with certain traditions that have a very high degree of ancestral worship Okay, there's a lot of Asian traditions, a lot of Native American traditions or indigenous peoples' traditions, etc. There's a very strong honoring of those who passed before you because they form a collective from which you are birthed, meaning you are a part of this collective in the embodiment, but they stand behind you, so to speak. You know, they give you an anchoring into who you are. They give you context for your beingness and your humanness. Oftentimes, and this is just my observation and understanding. I'm not saying this is necessarily what they believe. This is just my understanding and observation. So the thing is about this kind of tradition is it can be really powerful because it does give you a sense of belonging to something greater than yourself, a number of beings who did a number of things to help create the reality in which you get to experience. So there is something about that, and something about honoring the past, meaning like the people who did whatever they needed to do to create whatever you get to experience now. And there is wisdom in the ancestry. Like a lot of people will think, especially when they start doing frequency work, like, oh my God, there's so much distortion through the lineage, through the ancestors. And there is, but there is also wisdom and there is also gifting, and it's to recognize both. I think the thing with those traditions that are heavy in ancestry worship is to ask yourself the question, in addition to being grateful for the lineage, is everything from the lineage something that I want to carry with me at this point in time? And do I need to be less than those who passed before me? Can we each have brought different gifts? Because a lot of times, like you've said in different traditions, the person who's alive is less important than those who have passed before them. And so there's this interesting, in not saying every tradition, and I'm not saying in every family, but there are times where I've seen this time distort, where it kind of there's this reference in that lineage to the past, instead of the present moment, which can be really disempowering for the person who's alive because the reference point isn't something they can't change. You know, so it's disempowering in a way. So I think that's the question to ask in terms of ancestors. Like, can you be grateful for the wisdom and receive that? And also be aware of what passed before you and think, okay, well, how can I change that in the sense of, if I want to have a different trajectory, if I want to live a different possibility, if I want to have different relationship, whether it's with myself, with others, with money, with the world, with life, is there stuff that I can celebrate in my ancestry, and is there stuff that I need to release from it?
And then when you're talking like that, I can also hear myself, this big loud cry inside myself saying, I'd also want to know who in my ancestry or in my lineage actually did consciously choose to be in pure source. Because, I mean, I know for a fact that some of mine were naughty and didn't choose it. So do I necessarily want to honor them?
And good, that's an excellent question. I feel like it's an excellent question to ask. And the other question to ask is, if my lineage has had a lot of darkness in it, do I have the power to break away from it? Yes, absolutely, you do. Okay, so for some people, they want to experience that in this lifetime. Okay, I know that can sound really horrible to some of you because what your lineages are and what they experience is heavy and dark and can be very scary, and it takes momentum to break away from that. But you have the power to do it, and part of what you're doing is like seizing that opportunity to do that in this lifetime, to resolve it, if that makes sense. So not all of you. So a lot of you will have heard me say that as you clear up your own distortion, you affect your lineage, not only behind you, but in front of you,
meaning
just about to
your
ask children.
You.
Yes? Because as you liberate yourself from the heaviness of some of those distortion patterns that come from the lineage, you break that cycle, meaning your children don't have to experience the same thing that you do. Now, a lot of people have said to me, I don't feel connected to my lineage. You know, like I just feel like there's this weird blankness. And that's okay, especially as your frequency resonance rises, because what will happen is you start to break free, meaning you are in your own embodiment in this space-time resonance, you are choosing something different than what your lineage has chosen. Not your entire lineage, or maybe not even any of them, want to move into a higher level of awakening. That's just not their path. But it's interesting because we have to remember that there's not just one lineage.
So can we just stop there?
Sure.
Because that to me is quite critical. That little moment there where you said,
Yeah.
so, the ancestors are gone, so we think.
Yes.
But what you're actually saying is consciously they might want to raise their frequency resonance.
Yes.
So I can, in myself, I'm like, wait, what? They're dead?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're saying that they are still existing enough that they can see the changes happening in our individual lives, people that are doing frequency work, and how they're breaking free from all that density, the lineage density, and now they're choosing to follow that person in this space-time resonance. They're choosing to say, I'm going to be with her on this path because I want to raise my frequency.
Yes.
You're genuinely saying that to me right now.
Yeah, I am, because okay, so I'm going to back up in a little bit and talk about the dead, because I think that will be helpful. Helpful context.
Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of people believe that when we die, there's a lot of different religious beliefs. Okay, I'm not going to get into what all that is, but there's this prevalent belief that when you die, you go into the light. That's not actually true. That happens if you awaken before you die, and then you have a choice. You can move into that pure source field of energy that's infinite. You can choose to stay closer to the human realm. You can choose to straddle both and help the humans. You can help people who are in the death realm rise in their consciousness and move into that pure source energy. There's many options. That's not like an extensive list. That's just a short list.
Yeah.
So the thing is, there's a realm of the dead.
Yeah.
Okay, I know that sounds weird for most people. If you're not really sure what I'm talking about, I gave a whole, I think it was like a 45-minute podcast on demystifying the dead. Okay,
Yes.
just to give context. So if you're not sure what I'm talking about, go watch that. But essentially, depending on your frequency resonance that you experience in this lifetime, you get to choose what your experience is, or you don't really get to choose, but you choose when you're awake. But you experience different things when you die. Okay?
Yes.
So for some people, they're not very high in their frequency resonance. So when they die, they're not even, first of all, aware that they're dead. They really associate still with humanness. Right? So, a lot of people, when they'll see ghosts and stuff, it's because they're still in this earth realm. They haven't actually realized that they're dead and they need to move into a different realm. Then there are the dead who recognize they're dead and then are wanting to awaken even though they're not in bodies anymore.
Yeah.
So there they are, disembodied.
Yeah.
They know they're not human. They're recognizing they're dead, and they're moving towards a higher level of frequency resonance that they remember mostly, but are not quite sure how to get there.
Because of the work that the individual's doing.
Yes, in their lifetime. So let's just imagine it's somebody who was a seeker of some kind, right? And but they didn't awaken before they died.
Right.
So when they die, they're in a space where even in their death space, right? When in their experience of like deadness, let's just say.
Yeah.
They are moving towards a higher level of frequency resonance, even though they're no longer in a body.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
So this would be the space between if you are incarnating. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So the thing is, I'm going to back up and bottom line this. The reason you care about awakening before you die is because you have options. You can choose to, like I said, move into that field of pure source energy. You can help other humans. You can stay in that space where you're not embodied, because you recognize what you are as infinite indestructible consciousness, and help beings who are disembodied. You can help beings that are embodied. You can choose to incarnate again and not forget who you are. Do you see what I'm saying? You just have a lot of options. Not an exhaustive list, but you have options. If you don't awaken before you die, you go into this, like I said, this different realms, like the realm of the dead, but at different levels of frequency resonance, just like we have them when we're alive. It's just different when you're dead. And then you will also go into cycles of incarnation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what happens. And when you incarnate, you are given the opportunity, if you are a seeker type, so somebody who wants to remember who you truly are, where you'll be given opportunities, like where you will have that opportunity to awaken, and you have the free will to choose whether to or not. And then depending on your frequency resonance at that point of death, you move into a different part of the death cycle, a death experience. Yeah.
So I understand what you're saying, but it sounds like somebody gives them the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that was unclear. They have the opportunity because it's dictated by your frequency resonance. It's not like somebody waves a magic wand and gives it to you.
Right.
So I misstated there.
So it's always up to that being that's incarnating.
Yes.
The opportunity to awaken is always being provided.
Yes, exactly.
It's whether they take it or not.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so as a person doing the work, and, you know, I get that to honor the path of whoever came before me, really.
Yeah.
Whether we're talking about the emancipation movement, you know, things like that, for women to finally get the vote, whatever. To honor that path, but then it's how to do it so that the frequency resonance doesn't drop. It's how to do it with integrity. And then, I mean, inside I'm like, okay, so if I've got ancestors that want to raise their frequency resonance, how do I help them? Or should I even help them?
Yeah, you don't really need to actively do anything. Okay? Just by being a higher degree of frequency resonance helps them because they're connected to you. Right? Through the lineage.
Right.
So because you are doing it, just like the way you impact your kids in a way, right? Because you're modeling a certain kind of behavior, you're being a certain level of frequency resonance, which is the most important thing. Your children, especially as they get older, make their own choices, you know, based on your example, right? So they're in response to you and they're doing their own thing. It's similar, but less active to us. You know, I mean, like with your children, I mean, you're with them all the time and it's different, right? Because they're embodied beings. But your lineage, because you're connected to them, even if you don't, like most of us don't know our great-grandmother's names.
Yeah.
We don't know who they are, but they're there in the field. And you're connected to them because of this lineage connection. So because you embody a different possibility and they're sort of have a heightened level of connection to you, they then are given, or they have, not then given, they have the opportunity because of your resonance being higher to then raise their resonance.
Like in training?
Exactly. They get to entrain to you in a different way.
All right. So for me then, I think the next question, because I do have concerns around honouring ancestors, which prohibits me internally because I'm kind of like, I don't know if I want to honour my ancestors in this way, because I know that some of them chose the opposite of pure source.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So how do I, first of all, I guess, do I need to incorporate them in anything I do in my future, like ceremonies or, because there seems to be a big trend around honouring ancestors. Wherever you go to some land, you do a ceremony, the first thing they do is honour the ancestors.
Yeah.
And I find myself thinking, should we? You know?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
I mean, I know there is a part that would like to honour them for helping me be in this position I'm in right now.
Exactly.
You know, that I was seeking. And obviously somewhere in the lineage there's been this seeking energy. You know? And I want to honour that. But then how much should I, you know, partake in that kind of service, I guess I'm going to call it.
Yeah.
You know?
And I feel like it's a very individual choice and you don't have to. So to recognize that it's a choice.
Yeah.
So some of us have, like you said yourself, you know, in your ancestry, you're aware that there are some who chose not the path of pure source.
Yeah.
Well, you don't really feel connected to them and you don't certainly want to invite any of that in to you or around you or anywhere near you really. So the thing is, I feel like there's, as you get higher in your resonance, as you have, and as you get internally stronger, is to recognize in the lineage the darkness and the light. Yeah. And that you have gratitude or appreciation for what they have, where you are now because of what they have experienced, however they experienced, whatever they experienced. Yeah. And that is really it. So it's sort of like just by being a higher level version of yourself and how you impact your community around you. Not everyone in your community is going to be like, Fiona, you're so amazing. I want to, you know, I'm inspired by you. Some of them are going to be like, no. But it's like that with everybody, you know, in community. It's the same with your lineage. They are also going to make this choice, the ones who want to rise in their frequency resonance and want to move into that infinite field of pure source energy because they can feel it and they themselves have been seeking for it and have been waiting for someone in their lineage to do it. Yes. They'll entrain to you and use your momentum, not in a creepy way, but just because you have momentum. It's kind of like surfing on a wake, you know what I mean? You're just like, okay, there's a wave there. I'm just going to like take advantage of the wave, right? But I don't harm the wave. I'm just on it, you know what I mean? So similarly.
And is there a possibility that they can help boy as well?
Exactly. So depending on the lineage and depending on your own frequency resonance, I've seen it switch. So meaning where the person has gotten high enough in their resonance that it ripples out into their lineage, and those who want to rise in their resonance do so, and there's enough of them that it becomes positive, meaning it becomes like what I would call the helpful dead, right? So now all of a sudden they're like, all right, you're helping us, we're going to help help you. You know what I mean? It's not like that calculated, but it's this sort of reciprocal version of synergetic ascension, where it's like one being is rising in their resonance, helping other beings to rise in their resonance, which then buoys the original person, or actually groups of people, right, that are starting to now create this thing called synergetic ascension, where everyone is rising together.
Yeah.
So that can totally help. And it's interesting because I've witnessed it, where literally a person's lineage has gone from like holding them back to starting to help. It's really fascinating, right? Because of that dynamic that I just mentioned. And it's really amazing. So to answer a question that you asked previously, do I need to do anything else? No, other than to be aware of your own connection to pure source, to be aware of your ancestors. You don't need to do anything specific to them. Some of you out there who are watching this, your ancestors come to you, meaning they show up for you, and to hold your space. Like just because you're related to them in some way through your lineage, it doesn't mean that they are allowed in your space or that you have to allow them in. To hold your space, to hold your resonance. And if they want to come along with your frequency resonance and entrain to you, great, but they need to stay outside of your space.
Yeah, because that was one of the questions I had as well, because a lot of people do use their ancestors for information.
Yes.
And I find myself struggling with that because I'm kind of like, again, well, they're dead.
Yes, exactly.
And I'm in this specific time, space moment.
Yeah.
They are not in a physical body if they are in this time, space. So how can their information be any greater than mine? You know?
Yeah. And I think there's an important, what you've just said is really important, which is to be aware of your own power. And to not give your power away to something else or other beings that aren't embodied. Because the thing is, those beings, as you said, were embodied at a very specific space-time resonance where consciousness was at a certain level. So they may have been great healers. They may have been great teachers. They may have been great whatever at that time, which is amazing. And it was at a certain time in consciousness. So to be aware that whatever or whoever you are receiving information from, whether they are embodied or disembodied, to be aware of your own power and to not give it away to someone else because they appear to have more information for you. And also, if someone is talking to you, like meaning their actual words that are being said to you, generally that's a being that's of a lower frequency resonance because they need to talk to you, meaning that it's a human interaction. It's a way, it's very human of communicating. Beings that are of a higher frequency resonance can telepathically communicate with you. They're going to transmit information without words in a whole complete package that will be more like a feeling, awareness, knowingness. There is no need for words. So if something is talking to you, that's generally an indication it's a lower level frequency resonance.
Okay, so that brings me to the question. I have been in company where people ask their ancestors for things.
Yes.
To appear in their life, and they really believe that these ancestors have made these things appear in their life. How much value do you place on that?
Well, I would say that if you choose to believe that, then in a way that negates your own ability to create manifest, right? To be able to manifest on your own. Like you need something to help you. And if you don't have something to help you, you yourself are not powerful enough to manifest. So I would say if that's part of your belief system, that's great. And to ask yourself the question, if I don't have these ancestors helping me, do I believe that I'm powerful myself to manifest? Do I believe that I'm worthy of manifesting? There are all these questions that come up when you give your power away in a certain way. Does that make sense? So I would just ask myself the question about that and ask why do you feel you need external help to create or to manifest?
Okay, so wrapping this up a little bit, I think, coming right back to the original question, why do we care then about the lineage and the ancestors in relation to frequency work? Is it purely around clearing the distortions or is there something else?
Well, I feel like it is about clearing the distortion and also about getting to the point in your resonance that you can see the gift in your lineage.
Okay, so to receive the gift in the lineage, meaning like there could be more than one as well.
Yes.
But maybe perhaps on the lines of like wisdom and understanding that internally we're always connected and we are indestructible consciousness.
Yes.
Connected always to pure source.
Exactly. And that your ancestors give you a link to your humanness, right? They are like part of that dynamic or that experience of embodiment. So it's to, like with everything, be aware of where the gift is and what it is that you no longer need, what no longer serves you, what you want to create that is different and that is of you and that is of the frequency resonance that you are now. So I would say that that is all wrapped into the ancestors, and how you express yourself in your embodiment is part of that. It's funny, we don't really think of them, especially in our culture. You know, we don't think of our ancestors, but what you are choosing has a ripple effect to them.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're doing it for them. I just want to make it really clear. It's not like you're doing it for them, but there is a ripple effect, which is beyond what it is that you're just experiencing in your physicalness. And there are some people, I just want to say as well, who completely disassociate from their lineage.
Yeah.
They're just like, you know what? Thank you for what you've given me, and I choose to carve a whole new path for myself and what it is that I want to express. That is completely valid as well. And some of you are choosing to do that. So the question is not really like, must I do something?
Yes.
It's more like, as you rise in your resonance, what do you choose to do? And do you have like feelings of guilt or sadness or whatever if you choose to tear away completely from your lineage? Is that even required of you right now? You know, some people do that because there's such a reaction to the darkness.
Yeah.
They just want to completely tear away from the lineage.
Yeah.
And, you know, for some people, that's what it is that they need to do in order to resolve stuff for themselves in this lifetime. And for others, it's about, like I said, recognizing that darkness, moving away from it, clearing it all out, doing all that stuff, and then also having appreciation for the gift.
Yeah. So to be able to confirm the removal of that, the part of your lineage, and say it stops here, and then appreciate the valuable aspects of what your lineage carried, I guess. That's the human path, right? And I often wonder, okay, so that's my human lineage. And how does that link to the other ancestral stuff? Is that part of why you need to kind of understand your lineage, your ancestors, so that you can then understand how you connect with the other ancestors that are there waiting or not waiting? Or...
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what's really cool is that as you rise in your resonance, you start to be aware of, it's kind of trippy, actually. You start to be aware of your lineage or your ancestors from your alternate lifetimes. And we gave a whole podcast episode on past lives or alternate lives, whatever you want to call it. So please go ahead and watch that. But you get high enough in your resonance that you start to affect them, which is really very cool. And then as I've mentioned, you know, we've incarnated, for those of us who have incarnated many times, you have a whole bunch of different ancestors, and they kind of all start to become one in a way, because you start to recognize that you are all interconnected. So it's this amazing opportunity that we're coming into now as we rise in our consciousness level, as we release our distortion in a really fundamentally different and more powerful way than we ever have before, that we get to resolve those lineages too, which has a ripple effect into the oneness and into what's possible for humanity. Oh, it's amazing.
I mean, we could go a long way with this one, because, you know, the Aborigines, they have drawings on their caves, and they even talk about the other part of the human lineage that's not of this planet, that's seeded with the Aborigines, and that DNA is within us.
Yes.
And they believe that as our consciousness rises, as we make peace with our ancestors and our lineage, and then we expand and raise our consciousness, that these other beings are waiting for us to be able to help them, and they can help us, like this, like you call it, synergetic
ascension.
Synergetic ascension. That they're actually hovering, waiting for this moment to happen, that, you know, that they can start, but then that's a whole other topic.
It is. And I think we'll go into star beings another time, because you said it's like a whole other discussion.
But thanks for this one anyways.
Yes, thank you. So if you've liked this episode, please hit the like button and subscribe so more people can find out about us and we can rise together. We're about to start the Group Frequency Calibration, or GFC, where we actually do the frequency work and change is catalyzed. To get to the GFC, click on the square that'll appear on the right or the link in the description below. It's time to bring in a new experience, a new consciousness, and a new world. Let's rise together.